difference 5 minutes can make, or really even just 4 minutes if you don't include the overtime part of it, maybe even 5 minutes that could save Seattle's season. There's still plenty of hole to dig out of, but this is the type of thing that can turn the season around. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R. Welcome back from the holiday break, and welcome back to Kraken winning, as they may have sent us off to the holiday break with a 5-game losing streak and things looking pretty bleak, but we come back to a late gift of a game, one of the most incredible games in Kraken history, certainly the most incredible comeback in their history, and one of the craziest comebacks in NHL history. And I'm not just saying that because I'm getting too wrapped up in the emotions of it all with the undeniable Kraken bias and the incredible finish to this game, but this was also just the third time in NHL history that a team had come back from 3 or more goals down with less than 5 minutes left and ended up winning the game. So yeah, this is actually one of the craziest comebacks in NHL history, even if it's in the middle of the season where less people are paying attention. Now, even with all this excitement over a 5-4 overtime win for the Kraken in Vancouver against the Canucks and how this win ends up happening, again, a win that the Kraken desperately needed coming out of the break, was it the prettiest game from the Kraken ever? No. Did the Canucks have either of their 2 best players? No. So with that being the case, the Kraken probably should have been able to find a way to win this game in regulation. So then is it ideal that the Kraken, who are chasing the Canucks in the standings, still managed to give the Canucks a point in the standings and only catch up 1? No, it's definitely not ideal. But while that is all very worth discussing, and we will get to some of it, I don't think any of that is going to ruin the way that this game turns out for any Kraken fan anywhere. Besides, to be perfectly fair, while the Canucks were missing their 2 best players, I would say personally by some margin, in Elias Pettersson and Quinn Hughes especially, the Kraken were missing one of their best players due to injury as well in Joey Daccord, who's out day-to-day with an injury suffered in the Colorado game. I think we can all fairly safely assume that that would be the shot that he had off the inside of his elbow that took him to the bench. He still played the rest of that game, but at the same time, it really did seem like the type of thing that could be worse in the few days that follow rather than in the moment that it happens. Fortunately, it sounds like he still might be able to play on Monday when the Kraken come back to play Utah, but it did mean that Grubauer started this game in Vancouver coming out of the break. Other than that, a couple other changes in the Kraken lineup coming into this game were that Sprong stepped into Burakovsky's spot on the second line, Stevenson's line with McCann on the other wing. So Burakovsky out for this game. It seems like as a healthy scratch, things really not going very well for him here early on, almost halfway through the season now. And then Tanev is back in the lineup, which then pushes Gord back down to the 4th line where he was with Tanev and Cartier on either side. Although I say 4th line, that as a full unit had the 2nd most minutes on the ice to obviously Beniers' line. So with those changes to the lineup, we get into the game where, honestly, I think the Kraken get off to a pretty good start for really the majority of this first period, at least as far as the flow of the game is concerned. Certainly to say that this was 55 minutes of the Canucks controlling the game or outplaying the Kraken, or the Kraken playing poorly for 55 minutes and then just some 5 minutes of heroics at the end of it, they get it to overtime where the Kraken win it, is being a bit disingenuous to how this game actually went. I think the Kraken really were the better team for the majority of this first period, certainly through maybe the first 12, 13 minutes of it. The one big problem, though, is that they were not taking advantage of the opportunities they were creating. They were getting some pretty good looks, even a few in tight with, highlighted by a Capo Caco chance where he's able to get in one-on-one with Demko and then tries to get a pass across to Beniers, which had it gotten through and Beniers gotten the shot off, it would have been a fairly easy goal for Beniers to put in, but it doesn't get through cleanly, or at very least Beniers isn't able to get the shot off. It looked like, well, in live action, it looked like the pass was just broken up and Beniers isn't able to really get a shot off. He gets a bit of a stick on it, but not even a shot that misses the net. On second look with the replay, it looks like it just kind of gets a little bit too behind Beniers and he's kind of ahead of the puck. So when he tries to shoot it, he just kind of flubs the shot and it doesn't end up on net. Either way, Kakko passes up a one-on-one chance to try and score for a pass that doesn't get through. And that kind of was emblematic of most of the first, 12, 13 minutes of this game for the Kraken. I mean, with anything that they might have been doing well, offensively or otherwise, they didn't have a single shot on net halfway through the first period. So, yeah, you can create all the pressure, play well at 5-on-5, but nothing's going to go into the net if you don't shoot it at the net. Eventually, the Kraken do start taking shots on net. They put, 5 shots in 5 minutes or so on net, a couple pretty good chances. Tanev in tight off a pass from the corner, which Demko's able to save. Tolvanen had a almost one-on-one look that Demko's able to make the glove save on that. So they did eventually start putting those good chances they were getting on net, but at that point, Demko was locked in, and eventually we go to 4-on-4, where the Kraken create a couple of chances. But right at the end of it, Wright has a turnover, and then to recover from that turnover, he commits a penalty, which sends the Canucks to a power play that is going to be 4-on-3 for just a few seconds before the two guys from the 4-on-4 are going to get out of the box to make it a normal power play. But those few seconds are all the Canucks really need. They win the faceoff. A quick passing play gets it down to the side of the net, where the shot is taken by, I want to say, Miller. A one-time shot from Miller off the seam pass that Grubauer comes up with a spectacular save on, diving across, getting not only his leg, but also his glove hand to the post, and his arm gets just enough of it to keep it out of the net. It just goes flying straight up in the air. Unfortunately, it comes right back down in the middle of the crease, where Larson tries to get to it to keep it out, but he trips over Grubauer's either stick or leg as he's trying to get behind Grubauer to make sure the puck isn't poked in. Unfortunately, that trip makes it harder for him to do that, and it is poked in by Besser to give the Canucks the power play goal and the 1-0 lead. Shortly after which, still late in the first, the Kraken get their first power play of the game, which goes absolutely nowhere. In fact, if anything, the Canucks had the better opportunities offensively on this Kraken power play, so we get to the end of one, with the Kraken down one in spite of, I would say, all things considered, having played the better first period. But whether or not they were the better team throughout the first period, the Kraken certainly were the better team to start out the second, as it's all Kraken for the first couple minutes of the second period, during which they're able to get a couple pretty good chances on net and tie up the game. Though, if we're being honest, the shot that ties up the game was not one of those particularly good chances. It's one that Demko really should have had, and usually I think would have, though it's been a rocky start to his return after the injury that kept him out for the majority of the start of this season and also the end of last season. Either way, it comes off of also a poor transition from the Canucks, as a not great pass from their defense does hit a forward across the blue line into the Kraken end, but doesn't hit him clean. It allows Alexiak to create the turnover, get it quickly to Beniers, who takes it through the neutral zone into the offensive end, and then with 4 Canucks right around him, he just fires off a shot from well out right down the middle that goes off the glove of Demko and into the net behind him to give Beniers his first goal in 20 games. So if we're talking about this being a game that could turn around the Kraken season, hopefully this goal is one that can turn around the scoring woes of Beniers in the season. So again, certainly a goal that Demko would want back. It's a pretty bad one for him to let in, but from a Kraken perspective, it just further drives home the point that, well, certainly Eddie Olczyk was trying to drive home throughout the entire first period, of the Kraken just needing to shoot pucks on net when they were just passing up shot after shot through, especially those first 10 minutes when they had the opportunities. We already talked about the Kakko one. There were some other good chances for the Kraken to just fire a puck on net, and with goals like this going in, that's why you have to test a goaltender early and then decide, if a goaltender's really on his game, then maybe you start doing those plays of trying to get cross-seam passes, make a goaltender move, and do those things where otherwise it just looks like you're trying to get too cute and, well, passing your way out of opportunities. Unfortunately, though, from a team perspective, that's not really a lesson the Kraken would take to heart until, let's call it, about the last 5 minutes of the game. But that really wasn't the problem throughout the rest of this second period, as the Kraken keep up the momentum after Beniers' 5th of the season, and then get back-to-back power plays, which, unfortunately for the Kraken, kind of just served to kill the momentum that they had built. The second one looks a little bit better. They're able to at least have some offensive zone time and put pucks towards the net, but they're all blocked. I don't think a single shot made it on net in this second power play as well as the first. The third power play, they do get some chances on net, but again, nothing finds the back of it. And then right as it comes to an end, with McCann firing off one last shot, right back the other way, it's Garland out of the box onto a breakaway, and he beats Grubauer through the 5-hole with a shot that, they were, I think, maybe trying to give him a little bit too much credit of saying that he threw a changeup. I just don't think he quite got all of the shot. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It either threw Grubauer off enough, or he just didn't react quick enough. It gets through his 5-hole into the back to give the Canucks right back the lead. It's 2-1. And while not as bad as the one that Demko gave up to Beniers, it's one that Grubauer probably should have. He does make up for it, though, with a pretty nice save almost immediately afterwards, or at least within a couple minutes, that keeps it 2-1. The Canucks get a power play, which the Kraken do a good job of killing off. But then it's defensive blunders that get the Kraken once again as we get into the back half of the second. And while the last goal came off of the Kraken just losing a guy in transition in Garland for that breakaway, and he did come just out of the box, but there's a reason that goaltenders slap their stick on the ice coming towards the end of the power play so that the entire team knows that you have to at least have one guy back to cover that guy out of the box. They just didn't react quickly enough or hear Grubauer's stick for whatever reason. That allowed that Garland shot to get off that really should have never happened on that breakaway. Either way, this third goal for the Canucks that comes after the successful kill from the Kraken is just the Kraken losing a guy in their own end of the ice. Everyone's back in position, and it's a Carson Soucy pass that goes from one side clean across to the other through 3 Kraken players, maybe even 4, you can make the argument. Certainly the one that could have defended this a little bit better, I would say, is Vince Dunn, and he had a fantastic game otherwise. But on at least this play, Dunn, I would say, drifts too far away from Besser, giving him all the time and space he needs to just stand there, allow Soucy to get that pass to him, and fire off the one-time shot. Dunn isn't in position to either break up the pass or get a stick to try and break up the shot. Grubauer has no chance. It's 3-1 Canucks. Which, thanks to a few more saves from Grubauer late in the second, is the same score that we would have going into the start of the third, where a few minutes in, it's another complete defensive breakdown by the Kraken, this time in transition again, that allows a breakaway, this time for Jake DeBrusk. He gets in, completely left alone by a combination of Wright and Riker Evans. Evans in particular, I think, is a little bit more to blame on this one. He just stays way too high in the neutral zone and doesn't get back quickly enough after he tries to break up a play. Though even with that, I still think he had more than enough time to get, certainly at least in better defensive position, to make this at least a contested breakaway and not just a full one-on-one against Grubauer. And then, yeah, Wright also commits a little bit too deep with Evans already higher up in the neutral zone. Wright just takes a bad path to it and allows DeBrusk to get right between the two of them, wide open on the breakaway. He skates in and puts it over Grubauer into the top of the net to make it 4-1 Canucks, at which point we can pretty much wash our hands of this one. It's over. The Kraken are going to lose 6 straight regulation games for the third time in franchise history, something they hadn't done since the inaugural season, which, real quick, I think is worth clarifying one more time for anybody that might have been confused with the broadcast. They kept saying that it was the longest losing streak in Kraken history, or going to be tied for the longest losing streak. They might have said regulation losses. I don't know if I personally heard it. I know the first couple times I heard them say it, I was like, I know that they lost 8 and 9 straight last season, but again, regulation losses, so it doesn't count. Both of the other longer losing streaks, or all of the longer losing streaks the Kraken have had, were broken up by overtime losses that at least get a point in the standings. This would have been their 6th regulation loss, which would have tied that record. Either way, the point is at 4-1, the way the Kraken are playing offensively lately, with just 7 goals in their last 5 games during that losing streak, yeah, it's going to be a lot to ask for them to come back from this one. Especially when just a few seconds later in game time, it becomes 5-1 when the Kraken let another Canuck player get through all of them off a faceoff, and it's Dakota Joshua punching a puck into the net that was bobbling around in front of it. 5-1 Canucks. Luckily for the Kraken, though, the officials do their job well here, and not only end up overturning this goal, well, actually, they overturn the call on the ice as the officials get together after it originally being a goal. The horn and goal song go off and all that stuff. You can kind of tell that even Joshua wasn't sure that this was going to be a goal as he got up. The celebration wasn't as, I don't know, joyful as maybe it usually would be, with, I think, the expectation that it might not stand. Sure enough, as the officials got together, they changed the call on the ice to no goal for it being hit in with a glove hand. They go to review and quickly confirm that that is what happened. It comes off the board, so it stays 4-1, but that kind of just feels like I'd be lying if I said that, at least in the moment, it felt like that was going to make any difference in the end. And over the next 12 minutes of the third period, there was increasingly fewer reasons to believe that that disallowed goal was going to make any difference, as the Canucks are just, at this point, doing a really good job of forechecking to keep the Kraken from getting out of their end cleanly, and then back-checking to prevent the Kraken from getting set up or really creating anything offensively in the Canucks' end. Just playing generally good, checking, hard game really the entire game. They do, I think another complaint you could have about how the Kraken play in this one is that Canucks massively out-hit the Kraken in this game and were very obviously the more physical team throughout it. I think they out-hit the Kraken something like 24-8, so bettering them by a 3-1 ratio. Another thing that you kind of like to see the Kraken be a little bit better at, is a little bit harder playing, and that's part of having Kako and maybe even having Sprong in this game, is a couple bigger forwards that can use their body. I mean, Sprong hasn't always been a big hitter, but Kako will do that on the forecheck. Either way, it didn't really play out that way in this game. Regardless, though, as this game transitions from bleak to hopeless over the course of the third period for the Kraken, it eventually brings us to the final 5 minutes where everything changes, and it changes quickly. Well, it starts off with a goal that really just feels like another one of these late, meaningless garbage time goals for the Kraken. It's a pretty impressive goal. It's one that is created a bit off a good forecheck from the Kraken. Kako is part of that good forecheck, and eventually the puck ends up on the stick of Jaden Schwartz, who's behind the goal line down in the corner. And I don't mean just behind the goal line, like the puck is right on the red and a little bit past it. He's a good few feet beyond the goal line in the corner when he fires off this shot. Schwartz just throwing another puck at the net because what the heck, you're down by 3 and only have a few minutes left. Throw the puck there and maybe something good will happen. It does help that Sprong is right in front of the net, so maybe you get a rebound out to Sprong and he can shove one home. Instead, he doesn't need any of that. It goes off the back of the helmet, the back of the shoulder, somehow goes off of Demko and ends up in the net behind him. Demko can hardly believe it, and honestly, I don't know if Schwartz could believe it either. It does give the Kraken their second of the game and cuts the lead to 4-2. Even with that impressive goal from an impossible angle for Schwartz, though, you could tell by his body language that even he believed this was going to be too little too late, as he barely celebrates and heads to the bench for the high five line that you just kind of do for the ceremony of it, if nothing else. Really not one that he seemed all that excited about. Turns out it does make all the difference, because although the Canucks do press back and respond to this late goal from the Kraken, eventually the Kraken are able to get possession, and with under 2 minutes left, they get Grubauer pulled for the 6-on-5, where the Canucks display the ineptitude of their defensive core. Now, with that being said, Carson Soucy did have 2 assists in this game, so he gets his old team back a little bit, I suppose, for letting him go in free agency to the Canucks, though I don't know that he really cares that much at this point, as he did get to go to the playoffs last season while the Kraken were at home. Aside from that, though, I don't think I'm exaggerating by saying that with Quinn Hughes out of the lineup, the Kraken certainly, in my mind, had the 4 best defensemen on the ice, and maybe you could even make an argument for 5 with Alexiak being the 5th. Even Mahura's been playing pretty well, though I don't know if I'm going to go so far as to say that I'd rather have Mahura in the lineup than Soucy back with the Kraken or something like that. But it is a defensive blunder from the Canucks that with the 6-on-5, the extra skater out for the Kraken, it's a pass from defenseman, and it is helped by another good forecheck from Kaapo Kakko and actually Daniel Sprong, who kind of converge on one Canucks defenseman down in the corner. He throws the puck right out into the middle of wide open ice in the offensive end. Soucy is the first one that gets to it pretty cleanly. And when I say cleanly, Soucy was easily the first one to the puck, though he doesn't get the puck cleanly. It bounces on him. He tries to kind of lift it out of the offensive end rather than just hitting it back to safety along the boards. But as he tries to go to lift it out of the Canucks end of the ice, he doesn't get all of it, or really much of any of it at all, as it bobbles the puck and allows Dunn to just skate right up, take the puck from him, and get out into open ice where he's one-on-one with Demko, skates up and buries it into the far side top corner of the net over the blocker of Demko to bring the Kraken back to within 1. Dunn a little bit more excited about this one than Schwartz was before, as at least gives the Kraken a little bit of a chance down 1 that with just over a minute left on the clock, maybe they can complete the miracle and tie this one back up to send it to overtime. And sure enough, just seconds later, off the ensuing faceoff, the Kraken get control quickly, get the puck down into the offensive end, Grubauer pulled back to the bench, the 6th man once again out on the ice. Though I'm not even sure the 6th guy made that much of a difference in this play, as the puck finds its way down into the corner where Bjorkstrand's the first one to it, or maybe even that's being a little bit generous, as there's a Canucks player right there all over him. They kind of get to it at the same time. It's a contested puck, to say the least, in the corner. And with that being the case, although this play is going to be highlighted by what Jaden Schwartz is able to accomplish off the Bjorkstrand pass, I don't want it to get lost how incredible of a little touch pass this is from Bjorkstrand, as he doesn't even have body position. He's kind of draped all over the back of the Canucks player and still is somehow able to get not a normal, blade of the sticks on the ice pass out there. From the position he's in, I'm not even sure he would have been able, if he had wanted to get the full blade of his stick on the ice. So instead, he turns his stick and gets just the toe of the blade on the puck and just kind of shovels it out into the low face-off circle area where, again, the Kraken just catch a Vancouver player sleeping defensively. It's Jaden Schwartz who circles in, picks up that pass from Bjorkstrand, gets it to the net, fires off a shot, which Demko's able to save pretty easily. It's not a hard pad save for him to make in tight with the puck along the ice, and Schwartz having to work his way through 3 or 4 Canucks players to even get to the net in the first place. But the rebound comes right back out to the top of the crease, where Schwartz, still crossing in front of the net, is able to drag a foot, kick the puck to his forehand, and bury it into the back of the net to tie the game at 4 with still about 50 seconds left in the game. The Kraken make quick work of it, and in 22 seconds, tie this game from 4-2, where Schwartz had gotten it there in the first place with that shot behind the goal line, with the Dunn goal, and this one 22 seconds later. The Kraken have tied this game up. And it comes off another incredible play from Jaden Schwartz, who started all of this with that goal off the back of Demko and finishes it here with this goal as he works through pretty much the entire Canuck defense, feeding one guy to the puck from that pass off Bjorkstrand, which again was a fantastic pass, working his way through 2 or 3 players to get to the front of the net in the first place, and then to not only get the first shot off, but drag that foot, kick it to the forehand, and finish it to tie this game. It's his 500th NHL point as he picked up 499 with that first goal off the back of Demko. I mean, I don't know if there's a better 500th point in the NHL than completing a 3-goal comeback to at least force overtime, if not potentially the Kraken finishing this off in regulation, which really would have been something. We do end up getting to overtime, although the Kraken do get a couple more chances on net in these final 50 seconds. The Canucks nearly completed the total collapse to lose this one in regulation. But even with the force of overtime, it's just the second time in Kraken history that they had come back from 3 goals down at any point in the game to at least force overtime. With the other one coming way back in the inaugural season, pretty early on against the Blue Jackets, when the Kraken also came back from a 4-1 deficit to tie that one, where they would eventually lose it in overtime to the Blue Jackets. This time, though, as we head to overtime, with the Kraken having all the momentum there at the end, the 3 goals and nearly a 4th in just 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Well, in overtime, that momentum stays with the Kraken. They get the early control. Schwartz actually looks like he might have a chance to complete the hat trick and finish this game off right off the faceoff, but he's forced to play the puck back as he gets forced to the boards entering the offensive end. The Kraken maintain possession. Eventually, Montour is able to get a shot in tight, though, again, it's along the ice and a fairly easy pad save for Demko to make. But even with all that possession that the Kraken had early on and a couple good chances, it looks like the Canucks might have a chance to end this one in their favor in overtime, the first time that they get real good control of the puck. It comes off of it, has to be said, as a nice play by Tyler Myers, public enemy number 1 in Krakenland, or at least one of the public enemies certainly in Krakenland after that hit on Beniers in his rookie season a couple years ago. But he makes a nice play at the Kraken blue line to force a turnover, and then it looks like he's going to get in on a breakaway, but he kind of bobbles the puck a little bit as he enters the offensive end, which allows Wright to catch up to him. Myers still, though, is able to stop up and find a passing lane to what is 2 wide open teammates, as he has either Besser coming down the middle for what would be a pretty wide open shot, at least one that Grubauer has a chance to save, but a good chance of scoring there for Besser, or if he can get it all the way across to him cleanly, Miller on the far side coming in completely wide open, who would have all the time in the world he needs to, and even at that, a one-time shot would really give Grubauer no chance if it's placed well, but instead of hitting either of those 2 guys that would give the Canucks a pretty good chance at winning this game, Myers just puts it right between both of them. I mean, he does put it to where Miller was when he passed the puck, but Miller has his momentum going towards the net, as he should, so Myers threads the needle, misses both of his teammates, and Dunn, circling behind the play, picks the puck up and heads the other way on a breakaway. It could have been a 2-on-0 if Chandler Stevenson had followed and went on the far side of Dunn. But honestly, it seemed like Stevenson kind of decided to just eliminate any extra complication, I guess, and allow Dunn to do his thing. And well, given how the Kraken can overcomplicate things when they get good chances like this, and certainly did early on in this game, Dunn skates in all by himself, a little head fake and a shimmy, fires off the shot, and buries it to win the game for the Kraken. His 2nd of the game, put into pretty much the same spot. I think it was high on that blocker side, again, the same place that he scored to bring the Kraken back to within 1 there on that first turnover at 6-on-5 from Soucy. This one, again, is a turnover from a Canucks defenseman that ends up on the stick of Vince Dunn, a Kraken defenseman. He skates in on that breakaway, and just like that, 5-4 Kraken. This game is done. The losing streak is done, and hopefully the woes in general for the Kraken are over, as they can try to use this as a springboard into the rest of the season and make something happen here to get back into the playoff race. So again, well, there's certainly no way around the fact that it was not a pretty game from the Kraken, especially that second period. Though even the first, while they were playing well, they were just trying to get too cute in the offensive end and giving up chances, not firing pucks on the net, not making Demko do anything. And as we found out, he was kind of shaky in this game, so maybe taking a few more shots on net and forcing him to make those saves was probably a better idea than trying to make that extra pass through the middle through defensive sticks by the Canucks. Either way, the Kraken find a way to make the incredible comeback there to tie the game late with 3 goals in 4 minutes and 45 seconds. Actually, if you take it from goal to goal, it's less than 4 minutes, 3 minutes and 55 seconds, I believe, from first goal, or the first goal in that last stretch, the first Schwartz goal to the second Schwartz goal. Less than 4 minutes, the Kraken tie the game, nearly end it in regulation, and then do end it in overtime to complete the comeback and get their first win in a while. Again, the biggest comeback in Kraken history and one of the most incredible late comebacks in NHL history. So let's just enjoy this fantastic comeback and win for the Kraken, especially given that it came against the Canucks and that rivalry that we would like to turn into a little bit more than what it has been so far to this point, but certainly a geographical rival if nothing else, and games like this one will certainly help stoke a little bit more of a real rivalry. Really what you need is a playoff series. As far as that's concerned, it probably won't happen this year for a couple of reasons. One being that for the Kraken, well, this is definitely the type of game that can get a season turned around and spark that run that we saw the Kraken have around this time last year. Of course, it didn't quite turn out to be enough last season, but it still could be if they make it happen this year. It is still just 2 points in the standings, same as any other win. And actually at the same time, it puts 1 point in the standings for the team that you're most realistically trying to catch for that second wild card spot. Now, how the rest of things will play out for other teams and all that, we don't know, but at least right now, the way things look and what teams you would expect to be in the playoffs and where teams are at right now, the Canucks, as I said, after the game against the Avalanche going into the break, are probably the team that the Kraken are trying to catch for that second wild card spot if they want to get into the playoffs. And there still is plenty of hole for the Kraken to climb out of. They came into this game 9 points down from one of those 2 playoff spots. And while they did get 2 points in the standings and got a little bit closer, giving 1 point to, again, that team you're most likely to catch, well, halves what you could have gotten out of this win if you had just played, especially the second period, a little bit better. So one more time, and I'll try to make this quick so we can get back to fully enjoying this incredible finish to a game for the Kraken. It is just the one win, and the Kraken need to continue to make something special happen the rest of the way if they want to get back into the playoff picture and certainly back into the playoffs when all is said and done. They really did dig themselves quite a bit of a hole with, I mean, you can talk about any different parts of the season, the games against the Ducks and Sharks, the 5-game losing streak coming into the break where they had a couple other kind of stinkers of losses, especially against the Blackhawks. They need to really use this as a springboard that it could be in order to make that special run to get to the playoffs be a possibility. Of course, as we know, teams have made even more incredible comebacks at this point in the season the rest of the way to make the playoffs happen. Obviously, most recently, the notable example being the St. Louis Blues of 2019 in their cup run, the one that everyone will look back to as the, why not us? If the Blues could do it that year, we could probably do it. They didn't necessarily have any high-powered superstars on that team. They did have some pretty good players, but not like a Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl or Nathan MacKinnon, Sidney Crosby, whoever you want to put out there. They didn't have that one superstar that can just force the team to make the playoffs with an incredible back half of the season, almost a one-man effort to make it happen by themselves. Instead, they really did it as a full team effort under a new coach and a goaltending change midway through the season that also kind of sparked that turnaround. The Kraken probably won't see either of those things happen here halfway through the season, but if they can make a similar run, and they don't even need quite as incredible, improbable of a run as what the Blues had, they're not quite as far in a hole as the Blues were. They were I think they were the bottom of the standings in the NHL coming into the new year that season, and then had that run to get into the playoffs. The Kraken still need to have a better than 100-point pace the rest of the year to realistically have a chance at a wildcard spot, but it's definitely there for them if they want to do it. And yeah, the Blues team stands out for a reason. That is a very rare and not something you can expect to happen even any season by any team. That's something that's going to happen once every few decades, not once every year. Well, for what it's worth, the Kraken do have 2 players on their team that were a part of that miracle run Blues team that went all the way to winning the Stanley Cup. And they just so happen to be the 2 guys that completed and finished this comeback for the Kraken in Vince Dunn and Jaden Schwartz. So if that's not a sign of things to come and a potential turnaround for the Kraken and a miracle run of their own, I don't know what is. It's still a dream, but it would be a fantastic story. And this game in its own right was a fantastic story just by itself. It's a game that we as Kraken fans will remember for quite some time, regardless of what happens the rest of the year. And hopefully we have quite a few more wins the rest of this season. Maybe not quite like this. It would be nice if the Kraken could clean some things up, shoot the puck a little bit more than they did in the first, play a lot better defense than they did in the second. But you like the fight back from them, and coming back to win not only from 3 goals down with less than 5 minutes left, which only 2 other teams had done in NHL history. I know I've said that a couple of times, but I mean, it's historic, so there's a good reason to be excited about it and want to say it. As well as just, and I haven't said this one yet, the second time this season, the Kraken had come back to win a game when trailing going into the third period. Coming into it, they were 1-18-1 when trailing going into the third. Now it's 2-18-1. So still not great, but it is the most recent one, and it was the best comeback in franchise history. Anyway, as much as I'd love to keep spending time on specifically the last 5 minutes of this game and that comeback, we should probably close things out here with the Kraken 3 stars, as always brought to you by the patrons over on Patreon. If you want to help decide Kraken 3 stars after every game, whether it's a crazy comeback, a normal win, or every now and then a loss, you can help support the channel a little bit more than you already are by supporting on Patreon as well through the link down below, where you get to help decide the Kraken 3 stars, among other things. With the first star, I don't think, well, I guess it's kind of between 2 players, and I'm not going to argue with you too much, depending on who you want to be the first star. But to me, the first star has to be Jaden Schwartz. Sure, Vince Dunn also has 2 goals, and we'll get to him here in a second, but Schwartz was the machine in that last part of the third period that made 2 of the goals happen almost single-handedly. I mean, one of them pretty much was single-handed. He puts that shot in from a couple feet below the goal line off the back of Demko, and even if that wasn't self-admittedly necessarily what he was trying to do when he fired that puck, it still started all of this for the Kraken, and then he finished it, or at least the regulation part, the comeback to force overtime with that incredible play to get through the entire Canuck defense, worked his way with the puck even after he beat the Canuck player to the puck off that Bjorkstrand pass, which was a great pass. Even after he beats him to it, he has to work his way through a couple of Canucks players, 2 or 3 of them, in order to get to the front of the net, where he not only fires one shot off, but then is able to do that foot drag, get it to his forehand, where then he gets a second shot off, still fighting off Canucks to tie the game, and just a fantastic game from Jaden Schwartz. It's the type of game where Schwartz goes through these stretches where he just looks like the game breaker that the Kraken could desperately use. We've certainly seen over the last few games that he's one of the only Kraken players, somewhat frustratingly, that's consistently willing to go to the front of the net and make things happen there. It isn't quite exactly what I meant when I say front of the net with this goal. Usually I'm talking about screens and tip-ins, looking for rebounds. This time he just kind of does it all himself. Either way, I don't think enough good things can be said about Schwartz in this game. 2 goals there late to tie things up, and then obviously the second star has to be Vince Dunn. 2 goals of his own, both off of defensive turnovers, or turnovers from defensemen by the hands of the Canucks, to Dunn, the leading scorer from the Kraken defensively. Leading scorer franchise history-wise defensively for the Kraken, because Dunn missed so much at the start of the season. Montour also has played very well and very much is the leading scorer in all sorts of ways for the Kraken to this point. Either way, if you're the Canucks, not one of the first guys you want to turn the puck over to for the Kraken. Dunn picks up both of those turnovers from Canucks defensemen and shows why the Kraken defensive core is just way better than what the Canucks have, especially with Quinn Hughes out, obviously. And third star, the other consensus third star on Patreon, was Philip Grubauer. Now, his stats don't look fantastic in this game. He does let 4 goals in on just over 20 shots for the Canucks, so statistically not a very good game from Grubauer. But the goals that he let in, only one of them I really think he has a particularly good chance at stopping. The first one that goes in, he made a spectacular save even to give the Kraken a chance at keeping that one out of the net. It just takes a weird bounce, lands in the crease, and then the Kraken are unfortunately unlucky that it finds a way to get poked into the net behind Grubauer. Then, the Garland one is probably one you'd like to see Grubauer stop, even if it was defensively a horrible mistake from the Kraken in transition to let Garland have that breakaway shot in the first place. The next 2, I think we can safely put those pretty much on the defense. Maybe Grubauer could have not been quite so low to the ground and given quite as much of the top of the net on the fourth goal, the DeBrusque one, but yeah, it's just another horrible defensive breakdown by the Kraken. So in all, Grubauer had a fantastic game. He makes a couple of other pretty spectacular saves that did completely stay out of the net. He had the one after the second goal went in that, to me, completely makes up for that Garland goal, especially considering that that really wasn't all his fault, and a couple other pretty good saves throughout the rest of the game. I think Grubauer looked pretty good in it, even if the stats will suggest otherwise, and in the end, he did enough to get the Kraken the win. Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. If there's a different third player that you would give a star to. Beniers obviously gets a goal, his first in quite a while, and had a good game otherwise. I thought Capo Caco looked really good for a guy that I don't even know if he ended up on the score sheet. Bjorkstrand has that fantastic pass that I think will be easy to overlook to get Schwartz set up for that play he makes on the game tying goal. Braun played pretty well in his return to Vancouver after spending a little bit of time there at the start of the season. I also think Alexiak had a quietly pretty good game of his own, but I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, 3 stars or otherwise, about this game for the Kraken, and just enjoy it. Just party it up in the comments, and until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken.